Liam hadn't wanted to go back to the woods. Not after what happened 2 years ago. The accident had been his fault, though no one could prove it. Late one night, speeding down the winding forest roads after a fight with his girlfriend, he'd lost control. His car had careened off the road and into the trees, slamming into another vehicle head-on. The other driver, a woman named Ellie, hadn't made it. Liam had walked away with minor injuries and a crushing weight of guilt. Court called it an unfortunate accident, chalking it up to poor visibility and bad weather. But Liam knew the truth. If he hadn't been so reckless, Ellie would still be alive. He tried to forget, burying himself in work, booze, and shallow distractions. But at night, the memories always crept back her face, pale and lifeless, illuminated by the glow of his shattered headlights. The woods where it happened had been closed off for some time, the site deemed too dangerous after heavy storms made the roads unstable. But now, with the forest reopened to hikers, Liam found himself drawn back, as though he needed to face it. Maybe then, he'd finally stop seeing her face in his nightmares. It was supposed to be a quick hike, just a walk to clear his head, maybe leave some flowers near the spot where the crash happened. But as the sun dipped below the horizon and the shadows deepened, Liam felt it. At first, it was subtle, a rustling in the bushes, the feeling of being watched. He told himself it was nothing, just his nerves. But then the growling started, and now he was running for his life. Liam's breaths came in ragged gasps, clouds of mist forming in the frigid night air. He stumbled over a root, catching himself just before hitting the ground. His heart felt like it was about to explode. Keep running, he thought. Don't stop. Don't look back. The moonlight filtered through the skeletal trees, casting long, distorted shadows across the forest floor. Behind him, the sound of snapping twigs and heavy footfalls grew louder, closer. Whatever it wasn't slowing down. Liam chanced to glance over his shoulder. All he saw was darkness, a void that seemed to pulse and writhe, as though the forest itself were alive and hunting him. A low, guttural growl echoed through the trees. "No," he whispered, forcing his legs to move faster, even though every muscle in his body screamed in protest. Liam had no idea how long he'd been running. It felt like hours, but it could have been minutes. Time had lost all meaning. His only focus was survival. His mind raced as fast as his legs. It had started as a normal hike, just him and the solitude of the woods. He'd needed the break from the chaos of the city, the endless grind of work. But then, as the sun dipped below the horizon, he'd heard it, a faint rustling, like something large moving through the underbrush. At first, he thought it was just an animal. A bear, maybe. But then he saw the shadows impossibly fast, darting between the trees, circling him. And then the growl. Deep, primal, hungry. Now, here he was, sprinting for his life, his flashlight long since abandoned, his phone dead. The forest seemed endless, the trees pressing in closer with every step. A branch whipped across his face, drawing blood, but he barely noticed. He could feel it now, whatever was chasing him. It wasn't just behind him. It was all around him. No, 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 he muttered, his voice trembling. He spotted a break in the trees up ahead, a clearing. He burst through the underbrush and stumbled into the open space, his chest heaving. Clearing was eerily quiet, the air heavy and still. In the center stood an old, crumbling cabin, its windows shattered. Liam hesitated. Every instinct told him not to go in, but the sound of snapping branches behind him made the choice for him. He bolted toward the cabin, shoving the rotting door open and slamming it shut behind him. Inside the cabin, The interior was dark, the air thick with the smell of damp wood and decay. Liam fumbled in the pitch-black space, his hands brushing against broken furniture and cobwebs. He crouched behind an overturned table, trying to steady his breathing. Outside, the growling grew louder. The thing was close now. He could hear its claws scraping against the wooden porch, its heavy breaths just beyond the door. Liam clenched his fists, trying to suppress the rising panic. He had no weapon, no plan, just the faint hope that the cabin would somehow protect him. Suddenly, the door creaked open. Liam froze, his body trembling. The thing was inside. He could hear it moving, its footsteps slow and deliberate, the sound of its claws dragging across the floor. He squeezed his eyes shut, willing himself to disappear. Then, everything went silent. The only sound was his own ragged breathing. Slowly, he opened his eyes, and there it was, standing just a few feet away, staring down at him, its form cloaked in shadow. Its eyes glowed faintly, like embers in the dark, and its mouth twisted into a grin that was far too wide, revealing rows of jagged teeth. Liam tried to scream, but no sound came out. The creature crouched down, its face inches from his. Its breath was cold, like frost, and its voice was a low whisper.
"Why do you run?"
It asked. Liam blinked, stunned. What? What do you mean? The creature tilted its head, its grin never faltering.
"You don't remember, do you?"
Liam shook his head, his mind spinning. I don't. What are you talking about? Creature chuckled, a sound that sent shivers down his spine.
"You have been here before, many times, running, hiding, always trying to escape."
No, Liam said, shaking his head. This is my first time here. I don't know what you're talking about. The creature leaned closer, its glowing eyes locking onto his.
"This is your forest, your nightmare. You created me."
Liam's breath caught in his throat. What? The creature straightened, its grin fading into something colder.
"You come here at night, running from your guilt, but you can never run it, and you can never unrun me."
Memories began to flood back, fragmented, disjointed. A car crash. A scream. Blood on the windshield. He'd been driving, tired, reckless. And someone else had paid the price. No, Liam whispered, tears streaming down his face. It wasn't my fault. It wasn't. The creature growled, its form starting to dissolve into the shadows.
"You can lie to yourself, Leo, but you can't lie to me."
Cabin began to shake, the walls splintering, the floor crumbling beneath him. Liam screamed as the ground gave way, and he fell into darkness. Liam woke up with a jolt, drenched in sweat. He was back in his apartment, the first rays of sunlight streaming through the window. He rubbed his face, his hands trembling. It had felt so real, the forest, the chase, the creature. But it wasn't real. It couldn't be. His phone buzzed on the nightstand, and he grabbed it, desperate for some sense of normalcy. But when he looked at the screen, his blood ran cold. There was a single notification, 3:0 a.m. missed call. No number, just a message.